extinction level event, the complete surrender of our lives to a digital matrix controlled and operated by the deep state. I know it sounds far-fetched, but James Martinez is a survivor of the CIA's MKUltra program, the mind control program, the secret program used for brainwashing, used for torture, among other things. He's coming forward now because he says we need to sound the alarm and people need to wake up. The mainstream media is completely ignoring this story. And James Martinez joins us now. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the time to do this.
My pleasure. And so you talk about, you and I talked the other day, we talked about an extinction level event. I want to get into that here, but I think it's important for our audience to, before we get there, to maybe paint a picture of how you got involved with MKUltra, why you decided to blow the whistle, maybe a little backstory so people understand this and what we're facing right now. Would you mind kind of sharing that with our audience?
Well, yeah, just to begin with, I wasn't a victim of it. I exposed it. And that occurred, a certain aspect of it. And then MKUltra, I exposed a certain part of it. And I'll get into how these events took place and where I've got to today with it. In the early 90s, in late 80s, the United States was just getting used to of the possibility that there are extraterrestrials or aliens, that we're not alone. And during that time, the abduction phenomena had just started. And this was a very secret thing going on behind the scenes for quite some time until it finally broke through into U.S. media environments. So during that time in history, I had already, through my own investigations and meeting people and phone calls, was starting to interface with people that had these types of experiences, but we didn't know. We didn't know the whole story about what was going on, because I've been kind of a part of the disclosure movement in a certain fashion related to MKUltra, because I was the gentleman that came to Walter Board, who wrote the book Operation Mind Control, the first one in 1978. This was the exposure of the Churchwater hearings in relation to the using of human subjects, Americans, for neuroscience in forms of torture, LSD, child abduction, and so forth, as an R&D project that was already in motion that came into the United States after World War II. So,
can I stop you there? I know maybe our audience might not be familiar, but the CIA was like using hospitals and on unwitting patients who were just in the hospils. They had no idea. Some of them just given LSD by the CIA, basically. If memory serves, one of them jumped out of a window at a hospital. And because he was given LSD by the CIA, he had no idea, right? So a lot of these, they were like civilian buildings that were being used for MKUltra, right?
Yes. Yeah, that was part of it, was the drug part, research into drugs and psychedelics. And that was fully embedded in the culture in the 60s. My business partner and fellow whistleblower was named Walter Board. He started the underground press syndicate out of New York called the East Village Other. And he really became famous and infamous after he wrote that book in 1978, Operation Mind Control. I came in many, many years later when we posted and published Operation Mind Control Volume 2, the Special Researchers Edition, where I brought testimony into him about what essentially the behavioral science was used for and how they were faking alien abductions and using hypnosis, screen and scramble memory technology, drugs, and advanced technology on the public. So that was new news at that time. And
have you been injured in a car accident recently? Wondering if you need a lawyer? If you've been hurt in a car accident and it wasn't your fault?
And very secret, very, very, very secret in the early 90s. So when I met him, I said, okay, he found out, okay, this is what the technology is used for. And I brought in the aspect of, okay, this is, they're being able to manipulate consciousness enough to create a fake abduction and make it intense enough that the person will have post-traumatic stress disorder and all sorts of syndromes related to the trauma event.
So everybody should know this is what Dr. Stephen Greer has been talking about for many years. A lot of those abductions were done by the deep state, the deep CIA, MI6 state. Now, James Martinez,
of information and so forth. So that's how I met him in the early 90s, because I had already been involved in the disclosure aspect with big media people behind the scenes. One of them was Bob Guccione at New York, who ran Penthouse magazine. If people look up the Alien Penthouse magazine, they'll find that was where I did that. That was a big deal back then, and it was all over the news when that happened. But part of the information was we were finding out that they were using behavior modification technology for this type of activity. So that's how I met Walter Bowart. And then both of us put out Volume 2, Operation Mind Control Volume 2, which went into all the effects of the neuroscience on culture, what was happening in court cases, what was happening in the mental health business, because it is a business, what was the DSM-5 saying about dissociative identity disorder and how that affects behavior, consciousness, business, everything. All those things, we put the research into that book, and then we published it very quietly, and we formed what was called, at that point, the Freedom of Thought Foundation, which basically was a 501c3 that stood for the right and freedom to have cognitive liberty, or the right to your own thoughts, the right to your own identity, the right to all things, the right to your own brain, the right to your sovereign self for being here, for having an existence that's not controlled by somebody else. We were the first to do that. And back then, nobody knew anything about this at all. They barely knew what was going on at all. There was a very small handful of people that was involved with this. Colonel Fletcher Prouty was involved. Colonel Tom Bearden was involved. Walter Bowart was involved. I was involved. We had to sign agreements with psychiatrists and psychologists because they were terrified, because a lot of their clients had been abused in various programs, and they became clients. So we were looking at all the neuroscience and the effects of the neuroscience on culture in the United States. So this is what's going on behind the scenes, unbeknownst to basically everybody. The behavior.
What years are we talking about here?
This was in
the
that
MKUltra program going from the 1950s to the 1970s. But of course, we've done interviews on this show where it got, people think it ended in the 70s, but it became even more robust.
We're in it.
we're in it.
We're in it right now, which is the reason why I'm coming out and telling everybody now, because there's been movies, media, people have been talking about this, what we did all over the place. People can handle it now, but what they can't handle and maybe not be able to handle is the reason why I'm doing this interview in the first place, and why I was put in touch with you, because I was given a lot of people to talk to, and you were on the list, because initially when the 501c3 was set up, it was a nonprofit foundation to educate the public about how important it is to maintain our cognitive liberty. This supersedes the Constitution, law, everything, right? It's your right to have your own thoughts. And as an attorney and people associated with law, they're kind of getting acquainted with this now and what this is going to mean to human rights. So to the point reason I came here to talk to you is because recently I was asked to be the chief advisor on a committee related to the brain-computer interface and its relation to the international standards for technology. That basically is they're a group of countries all over the world, and they all have committees that represent their country. Those committees determine what the standards are going to be for technology when it's commercialized and goes all over the world. Like, for instance, the phone or a toaster or whatever, it's got to meet certain safety standards and all this type of stuff. These committees are determining public policy about what's going to happen when you interface the brain, the computer, AI, and quantum.
Without our consent.
That's
without our consent,
everything.
Everybody.
Period. It's the end. It's the initiation of the decapitation of our relationship to God. Will become cybernetic. Will become, instead of carbon, will be silicon-based life forms. Cybernetics and they're going to do
You
this
better
via
believe this is
voluntary
going on for
compliance.
all you sheep
Most
out
people
there.
will walk right into it,
And I'm sure my
not even
viewers
knowing that
aren't
they're
sheep,
doing
but
it
there's a
or
lot of
want to do it.
dumbasses out there that don't get
When
this.
I first tried this weird little ear trick to quiet the
Sickening.
ringing in my ears, I honestly didn't think it would
So,
work. But 3 days later,
oh, this is
I had the
bullshit.
first full night of silence in years. No but.
Because there's portions of the population all over the world, in the younger generations that feel that humanity has no hope at all, and they are going to fuse with this technology already. So the brain-computer interface, it's tied in to everything. All our warfare systems, all our banking systems, all our health systems, all in the ways we do commerce and move about in culture. This is the extinction level event because you no longer are an organic, free will human being. You're now fused, tied into the cloud. And there's a documentary film crew that's recently contacted me, and I've talked to many people behind the scenes now
This man
because
is a hero.
I really initially I could have
We're only in the
commercialized
land of the
myself
free because
in
of
this
the brave, and
chapter
this is
of
what
my
a
life
brave person is.
quite well
This
and
one.
made a huge name for myself. I'm another
Redacted.
mind control guy, but I really didn't want to do that. I've not been really public, not as much as I used to be, because I've always been in the solution orientated thing. Don't tell an audience just a problem without telling them a solution. So I don't want to come here and say, okay, we're at the end of civilization, and that's it. Bye, have a nice day. Rather than inform your audience, inform the people that will see this either live or taped or a year from now or 6 months from now, that this is the point where you can no longer be a spectator, period. Because everything that's in the news today, when this will be aired, is not relevant at all. It's all misdirection. And I say it's not relevant at all, not because it's not important, because it is important. But the behind the scenes, the powers that be want everybody distracted with Epstein and the war and Gaza and Africa and all this other stuff.
And just so you know, when you watch the whole video, he's talking about the people being involved, like Palantir. He's talking about Teal. He's talking about the DOD. Well, segments of the DOD.
Everybody knows that name. They are aiding and abetting the end of our species. Okay? So what I'm saying, and I will have documents in the near future, is he's going to be sued by many people to begin the process of public dialogue, public policy, and your rights to your own brain. Now, there's already been laws that have been passed in the governor of California just passed laws protecting somebody's individual brain and their personality, because now what's happening is the very symptoms of all this are happening because people are cloning their personalities, cloning their voices, and putting them into the internet. And this is all going to create, there's no law in anything in the world prepared to deal with this and what's going to happen. None.
So what do you think specifically, and then I want to kind of break it apart a little bit, but who's behind this, but what specifically do you think is going to happen when we talk about an extinction level event?
Extinction, when I'm referring to extinction, I'm saying the form in which your body is in now. You go walk around and you don't have any wires attached to you. You're bathing in electricity and EMF and all sorts of radio waves and everything else. But some people are more apt because their bodies are being used as energy chargers for the cloud.
Like me.
If they've had the kill shot. Other people that are not, that don't have nanotechnology in their blood or on their skin, or they've ingested, they still can be transmitted. Synthetic technology, or telepathy rather, their moods can be altered. They can induce modules of schizophrenia. So this is what's really going on. This is the end goal. So when the World Economic Forum came out and they're bragging about what they're going to do with everybody, whatever they're saying they're doing, they're probably 5 years ahead of it already. and they just tell off the tail parts of it. But when they said they were going to get rid of a large portion of the global population, they didn't exactly say all the details in which they're doing. People presume that means we're dead. They're going to kill people. And yes, they are doing it, but they're using all sorts of soft kill weaponry to do it, to make it so they don't look like they're doing it. And they get everybody involved to be aiding and abetting that. But this is invisible. Can't see.
So who's behind this specifically? We talk about MKUltra. Is this part of the CIA MKUltra program, part of your investigations and whistleblowing?
Yeah, this is part of the corporations aiding and abetting in the computer industry, the cell phone industry, the cell tower industry, and...
2 ex-NASA engineers just created a way to cool rooms in under 90 seconds using barely any power. Watch this video before...
And the satellite industry. Because you need, in order to make all these programs work, you have to have your subjects be fully invested and almost cybernetic with all their devices. In other words, I mean, how many people do you see a day that have their face in their phone all day? Or at least 8 to 10 hours a day, all over the place. And you have people in the cafes. So this has already altered cultural behavior and biology. It's already got biological impact anyway. We're not supposed to be sitting in cafes in front of phones for 12 hours in a row. Okay, so this is already happening, and people are voluntarily complying and falling into this. So there's effects that are happening about this already. But in order for it to work, you have to have the legal compliance of the states and everybody that are putting up the towers. Because you might notice as well that if you're looking, and I don't know if you've covered this or not, there's people on the Hill right now that have testified in Congress about the use of neurostrike weapons on the brain in targeted individuals. This is a legitimate complaint because the first lawsuit in history.
Oh my God. And that's where it was going to say Anna Toledo, everybody. Unbelievable. Come on.
Against targeted individuals was filed by Anna Toledo, the attorney in Texas. This is related to all of this. Because remember, to perfect weaponry or perfect a system, you need to test it. And a lot of these systems and weapons are being tested on the public unbeknownst to them.
Oh, I
because
know
it's
it.
coming through the electricity, because you're an electric being.
Right.
Your heart's
I was hitting
your heart rate and everything is
damaged.
it's an electric.
I'm being hit in the head with a Vanna syndrome.
You are affected by electricity or the weather and so forth. When you're surrounded this in your house, on your phone, under 5G conditions, it's basically micro escalation to prepare you for 6G. When they put out the cell phones, we're basically training wheels for the public to prepare them for telepathy, because the effective instantaneousness was altered by the user in the interface. In other words, initially this started off with a pager. You may remember a long time ago when people had pagers.
Okay, but this is a must. Listening to what this man is saying, James Martinez, CIA whistleblower, is a must. I have to live in a fortress under here with iron, copper, aluminum, thick, material grade, outdoor type of stuff to protect myself from the directed energy weapons I'm being attacked with. 24/7, 2 days in a row, 1 day quieter, 2 days very intense. Like right now, it's pissing me off because I do not consent. You need to listen to him. You need to go to his website, James Martinez, because he's going to show you one thing you can do to protect yourself, and it's extremely important for everybody, for all the TIs, for Anna Toledo, whose name he mentioned here. Everybody must do this, what he suggests at the end of this video.